Hello, everybody. Welcome to Starcastic Remarks. Alongside my brother, James Chambers, my name is Ryan Chambers. Thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook for being our sponsor, as always, with their newest Pick 6 option. That's promo code THPN if you would like to do so. And you can get a special little offer from them, from us. We have got a bunch of stuff here to talk about this evening. Chris is currently actually working, kind of. He is at a Texas Stars game here this evening. That's why he is not here. Although, he's missing a lot, and there's a ton of things that are going on around the NHL, including tonight. So, first off, James, how's everything going? How are you feeling?
I got a little headache. There's some storms in the area, big lightning storms. So that's not great. But, there's a ton of stuff going around in the NHL, especially just tonight. I mean, you have Ovechkin moving 3 away now, and you have Stankoven trying to fight Tom Wilson, which is interesting judgment call. But, yeah, it's some fun stuff going around the NHL.
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to start with something completely different, but let's just go ahead and just start with that, right? Okay. First things for Brandon, did anyone have Stankoven fighting Tom Wilson on their bingo card today? I no. That is the last thing I would expect from Logan Stankoven is the fact that he not only does he score a freakishly amazing goal here tonight, by the way, the third goal for the Canes tonight was fantastic, but him fighting, one of the biggest, nastiest guys in the NHL. And yeah, he's kind of tampered it down in the last several seasons, but I mean, that is not a guy you want to mess with. So mad props to him for doing it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's ill-advised to say the least, but I mean, if that's what he wants to go do, that's what he's going to go do.
I'm having so much fun watching him. I really am, and I'm glad that he's doing well with the Canes. The only time, go ahead.
He's shorter than everyone on the ice by a lot, and he's still willing to go out there and try to ruffle some feathers, which is just really cool to see. I mean, that's something that we saw from like Anton Roussel years back. He's not very tall, but I mean, Stankoven's even shorter, so I was
about to say he's even shorter than Roos. Yeah. So, I accidentally muted myself. My bad. So we got lots of other things to get in here tonight, other than just Logan Stankoven being the little pest that he is tonight. Great for him doing that. Technically, it wasn't a fight. I went and looked it up. They got roughing. I think Tom Wilson got double minor for roughing, and he got just a single minor, but. Still, whatever. Close enough. That's as close as I think Logan Stankoven is ever going to get to an actual fighting major.
Hopefully for him.
maybe one day he'll go and fight Cole Caulfield or something like that. I don't know. And he actually has an inch on Cole Caulfield. I went and looked that up. He does. So, anyways, we're getting off of that. So, Stars continuing their winning streak. They're now 6-0-2 in their last 8. They're on a 6-game winning streak currently. I mean, Sagan and Miro are both skating. We're going to talk about Miro a little bit further on because I think that is kind of critical into how the Stars are playing right now, and I think that could change when he comes back. We'll get into that a little bit. We're going to get into some of the recent NCAA signings that we haven't gotten the chance to talk about. We didn't have an hour episode in the last 2 weeks because, last week we actually had a game, so we just did a regular AGR, and then we're gonna get into the standings and kind of take a look at the standings because they're very interesting considering the top 8 in the West kind of look solidified at this point. I think at this point it's just a matter of where people are going to end. The Blues are on a 10-game winning streak. They could overtake Minnesota, and Minnesota could be wild card too. The Stars could go off and win the President's Trophy. They're back in that conversation again after that terrible, terrible loss to Winnipeg that they had a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to get into all of that stuff here tonight. But where do you want to start with all of this, James? Is there something specific you want to start with, or do you want me to pick?
Well, let's start with the Blues because I feel like that's really important, especially for possible matchups. The Blues have just been on a heater since coming out of the what is the All-Star break this year, and they're the only team who has a better record than the Stars in that time.
And because of their recent success over here, they have propelled themselves into the playoffs, and not just propelled themselves into the playoffs, but have solidified that final playoff spot in the West. For a while, it looked like, it could be anybody's. It could be Calgary, Vancouver, whatever. But it seems like they all just kind of mediocred out, or just kind of said, no, it's okay, you can have the playoff spot. And then here comes the Blues just kind of ramping everything up. So fantastic for him to do so. So great for him to be doing that.
You have a ton of former Stars on that team too. I mean, the coach is former Stars. You have Fox over there. You have Suter over there. There's so many people over there that are from the Stars organization. And then you also have the storyline of the Blues offer sheeting two of the Oilers players, and now they're in a playoff spot after looking like they were going to have a down year and try to rebuild or retool.
I was actually,
I should say.
Yes. Well, I was especially impressed with Broberg. Broberg especially really impressed me. Holloway was pretty solid and pretty consistent throughout the year last year, and he's a very good forward. But Broberg especially just kind of came out of nowhere, and then he got that big contract from them, more than probably he was worth at the time, and he has given them a lot of value for the contract that Doug Armstrong gave them. So they've been excellent for the Blues.
Yeah, and he's really flourished under the new coaching style too. I mean, it's helped them out immensely. It's freed up a lot of their defense, not just Broberg, to go and go deep into the offensive zone. They're doing more of the cycle kind of thing that the Stars do.
And let's talk about this because we got a couple of super chats, and we'll get back to the first one here in a second. But this one actually really ties in well to what we're talking about, James. Brandon Perkins, thank you, Brandon, for the $4.99 super chat. We appreciate it. How bad are the Bruins kicking themselves? Sorry, we're gonna censor that for firing Monty. Look at the turn he has done for the Blues. That is probably, honestly, the biggest reason why the Blues have done so well, because a lot of these players were already here. I mean, they kind of traded for Cam Fowler, not at the trade deadline, but maybe a couple weeks before the trade deadline, a month before the trade deadline, something like that. I forget when exactly it was, but I think Jim Montgomery deserves a whole heck of a lot of credit for why the St. Louis Blues are doing so well all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's got them playing a completely different style. Their offense is way up, and he's got them playing puck possession as well. So they're keeping the puck more often. They're getting better shots on goal, and that tends to help you out on the other side of the ice too when you have the puck most of the time. So they're keeping the puck out of their own net, and part of that also is due to Binnington having a great bounce back after going into that Four Nations tournament and helping Canada win.
And honestly, with all of the stuff that we've seen from the Blues the last couple of weeks, I'm not surprised that Montgomery is the reason why. I'm gonna kind of defer to the hockey guy's perspective on this, Shannon's perspective, the YouTuber. When they first got him at the helm, I mean, it was pretty quick. I mean, he was probably not even a week without a job, and he comes in. And basically, the way Shannon described it was they were playing a whole heck of a lot better, and they were playing the systems right, but they weren't getting the results that should have followed with those with the way they were playing, because they were playing really well. Now all they're starting to get the repercussions of all of the good things that they've been doing. So maybe this is just a swing in one direction where they're getting more out of their bang for their buck than what they did earlier in the Montgomery helm when he took over. But he just deserves a lot of credit for what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, and here's a random question. I'll ask you about it, James. I mean, what was the whole deal with Boston firing Jim Montgomery? It didn't make any sense to me because he didn't have the same personnel that he had when he took the Bruins to a ridiculous run, and they were the greatest regular season team in history, and I just don't understand the reasoning behind it, because if he's a good coach, you want to keep him regardless of if you're going through a rebuild or not. They had to see this coming.
Yeah. I mean,
Or
this
were they
is
really just that blind to the fact that they thought they had a really good team in front of them?
no. This is just the easiest thing to do when a team is struggling is fire the coach, and this specific reason is why you shouldn't follow that rule typically, because you have a coach like Montgomery who goes to another team and makes them amazing, and now your team has lost 9 straight. By the way, they've lost 9 straight, and they're the worst in that conference now, pretty much. So it's not that anyone's surprised that it's happened. It's that the Bruins did what every other team in the past like 3 or 4 years has done when their team has a bad start, and that's fire the coach and get a little quick bump. And they did get a little bump when the new coach came in. It didn't last, and that's because the team was not the same. Like you said, the personnel's not the same. You have Swayman is the only one there now. You traded Olmark away, so it made it really tough for the team to be as competitive. And coming into the season, I think everyone kind of knew that they weren't going to be as competitive, and there just wasn't as long as a leash as there probably should have been, especially for a coach that had like a 600 or greater points percentage while he was there.
Well, he did the same thing with Dallas, right? He was fantastic with Dallas. The only reason why he was fired in Dallas was not for his performance, but it was for his off ice antics, and we've talked about that before. I don't want to get into that because he's publicly said that he's changed from that. So good,
Yeah,
again, good for him for doing so. So, but anyways, I didn't understand the whole firing him thing, but
we didn't understand it at the time either. I mean, we saw that, we're just like, well, that's stupid.
It is stupid. And the other thing is that, I mean, the only thing I can think of is you've got 2 examples very recently, actually, where it's worked. Well, it depends on your definition of worked. Obviously, last year with the Oilers, they get I can't remember his name.
It's fine. I know they changed their coach.
They changed their head coach. I feel bad. I should know his name. But then Chris Knobloch takes over, and they go to the Stanley Cup final, right? In 2019, when Craig Berube was not even the head coach of the Blues, they switched out Mike Yeo for him. He comes in, and he makes some decisions, including bringing Bennington into the forefront and becoming the starting goalie, and that runs them all the way to the Stanley Cup final, and then they win. So, that's only within the last 5-6 years. Those 2 examples, and I'm sure there's others that I'm not thinking of right now. But would you say that is more of an exception to the rule, or do you think that maybe something like this could happen?
I mean, it's absolutely an exception to the rule, and the only reason why it looks so bad on the Bruins is because they had him as a head coach already and fired him. And then it didn't even take the Blues, like you said, didn't even take him a week to fire their head coach to go and get him. So that shows you how good of a coach he really is. And it shows you how dumb of a move it was way back when.
All right, let's move on to the next thing, and this also lets us bring up the original super chat of today's episode. Ryan Gardner, thank you, Ryan, for the $4.99. Sagan was practicing. Also, rip Chris. Go Hawks. Lots of things to unpack there. First off, rip Chris. Yes, he's not here to make fun of me for the Who Cares segment today. Although I'm sure James will do that for me. You don't know?
I don't know.
You got to make up for it. He's not here. You got to double down.
I'll try.
It'll be very interesting where this goes. But anyways, go Hawks. Who are they playing tonight?
The Avalanche.
The Avalanche. Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't want to sound stupid though. Okay, and then the main thing why I wanted to bring this super chat up, Sagan and Miro, they're both practicing obviously right now. Or Miro is not practicing; he is skating. Sagan is actually taking drills with the team. He was wearing the blue jersey today, different from everybody else. Obviously, probably a non-contact jersey would be my guess. Let's just talk about him for a second. Where do you think he's going to slot back in? Do you immediately just throw him on the line with Duchesne and Marchman and say, good luck, have fun? Or do you maybe throw him in on the third line a little bit and kind of let him skate around a little bit before you throw him onto that second line?
No, you throw him back onto the second line. You see, it's been a while, guys. It's been a while since we've seen that line together, but that was the best line to start the season. And the only reason why it's not still the best line is because Sagan got hurt and had that surgery. So you're going to throw him back up on there. They tend to click really well. And even if they don't, then you get to move Granlund down with Wyatt Johnston, which sounds amazing to me. So regardless, your forward depth is gonna look stupid once Sagan gets back, especially on paper. It's gonna look completely ridiculous.
What do you expect from him when he comes back? Are you expecting a little? I mean, there's obviously going to be some rust there because everyone has been playing games for 8 months or whatever, and he has not been playing for the last 6. So, and it's going to be at the most important time of the year too. I think he's going to get, maybe if he's lucky, I think he'll get 3 games. But we'll probably see him at least in 1 or 2 before the playoffs start. So what are you looking from him coming into the last couple of games of the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hoping is that he can just pick it back up. What I'm kind of expecting is rust at first, but then he's going to get back to his game fairly quickly. I feel like he knows his game no longer is reliant on speed. And that is something that we have seen the last couple of years now. He's found different ways to score. He's really kind of embracing more of a sniper role rather than getting up ice really quickly and getting breakaways or up on the rush even. You don't see that as much from Sagan. It really is more of being able to pick spots. And when you're talking about a hip surgery that he has already had before and come back from and looked good right after he came back, I mean, it's fully possible that he comes back super strong, but I don't think it's going to take him long to get back up to game speed regardless.
Well, and the other way you can kind of look at this is, yes, he's probably going to have some rust and he's not going to have the same chemistry that he had with Duchesne and Marchman at the beginning of the season when he was basically a point per game player. But you could also look at it and say, well, he hasn't been playing games. Like his battery is going to basically be fully charged at some point. I don't think he's going to be fully 100%, but I would, 90, 95%. That's kind of my expectation of with him coming back where I think he's going to be at. And that's a heck of a lot better than a lot of, players around the NHL where they're probably, I mean, what do you think? 60, 70% just battery wise because of how many games they've played, and they're probably battling their own bruises or minor little things or whatever. I mean, you could look at that and say that's a huge positive too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So the real reason for this episode today is mostly for Miro Heiskanen. And he is skating in Frisco. He is skating consistently. I'll just ask you this question because it is a very softball question, James. Does Miro mean that much to the Stars' playoff success if he is in the lineup or out of the lineup?
I would like to say it shouldn't just because of how much skill we have up front, but it truly does. I mean, you take anyone's number one defenseman out of their lineup and suddenly they look shells of themselves. I mean, it is absolutely critical that Miro has to get back for the playoffs. Like maybe you could squeak out a series without him. I think that that's definitely possible. You need some really good goaltending from Otter to pull that off, but he's capable of doing that. If you're talking about if you want to go all the way to the cup, which is what the Stars have been talking about for the past 2-3 years now, you need to have your number one defenseman, and specifically Miro Heiskanen, back in the lineup, because he just calms down the game so much. When he went out of the lineup, I mean, the Stars looked different and have looked different. They look slightly shakier is kind of what I'd call it, but it's more chaotic is really what it is. You don't have the same flow to a game. You don't have the same constant pressure that really he's able to help put offensively, because you just don't end up in your defensive zone as much. So long answer, yes. Short answer, I hope it doesn't mean as much as we're thinking it does.
Yeah, that's a lot of good words there, James. I agree with you. I was going to ask you a question, and then you kind of answered the question a little bit, kind of pumping it home, hitting a couple home runs where it would have made my question sound stupid. The question was going to be, is Miro actually the Stars' number one defenseman? And the reason why I asked that is because of the emergence of Thomas Harley, and Thomas Harley has been great in what he's been asked to do. And he's gotten a little bit more rest over the last couple of games, especially. But the thing is about Miro is he has to be your number one defenseman. If he's not your number one defenseman, then you're not gonna win the cup. That's my personal opinion based off of how important he is defensively to this team. And the one thing that, and I'm gonna hammer this home because I've been talking about this a lot, is the way they are handling the puck. It has been revolting and egregious, especially the last 3 weeks, maybe even up to a month at this point. And I'm talking about zone exits. And you talked a little bit about, Miro kind of makes everything calm. He calms everything down. That exactly is a perfect. I love the word that you used, which was chaotic, because the way the Stars have been exiting out of their zone lately, it's been very much pass the problems along or go up the boards, and it creates a 2-on-1 scenario where the other team is at the half wall right next to the face-off dot. And then we lose the puck, and then it continues to cycle in our zone, and our guys get more tired, and we spend less time in the offensive zone. Now, we have been able to negate that a little bit because our shooting percentage has been absolutely astronomical and incredible. But eventually, you can't rely upon that in the playoffs. And I think that's why, more than anything, why Miro is going to be super important. And then you also have to consider the type of players that you're gonna see in the playoffs. Okay, I mean, it's a collision course. Let's be honest about this. We've been talking about it for weeks. Colorado is the most likely opponent for the Dallas Stars in the playoffs. Who is going to guard Nathan MacKinnon? If you have a Miro Heiskanen, that negates a lot of Nathan MacKinnon. That's not going to negate everything, because Nathan MacKinnon is a ridiculous player. He's fantastic. I would argue he's the best player in the NHL for the last 2 or 3 years, in my personal opinion, even over Connor McDavid. And you can fight me. We can talk about that another day. But then you've also got, a possible collision with the Edmonton Oilers in the conference final. And you've got 2 guys there that are nasty and disgusting that you're going to have to go against. And you could put Miro against one, Essa against the other. There you go. That helps a little bit. And I'm talking about Draisaitl and McDavid, obviously, if that wasn't clear. And then you've even got players on the opposite side on the Eastern Conference who are ridiculous, like Sebastian Aho for the Carolina Hurricanes. He just does everything for that squad. And as good as Thomas Harley is, I'm not trying to diminish how important Thomas Harley is to this team, because he has shown how important he is to this team. I think you've got 2 number one defensemen right now, in Harley and in Miro, in different aspects in how they play the game. And with the 2 of them together, it's just that you could have the best pairing in the NHL for a long time with those two guys together. When Miro comes in, Miro is going to be D guy number one. Rely upon him for everything defensively, and he can focus on that. And could he play power play too a little bit? Yes, he absolutely should. And then you got Thomas Harley, who has been he is one of the key reasons why the power play has just been ridiculous the last 2-3 months. And it's not a coincidence that Miro goes out and the power play gets a little bit better. And again, that's not a slight to Miro. That's just Harley's strength. So when Miro comes back in, you have to play him to his strengths. And if you play him to his strengths, that's why he means so much to the Stars' playoff success, is because of what he can do that Harley cannot do as well. So sorry, I know that's a lot of words and jamble and stuff like that, but I feel very, very strongly about this, that the obvious answer is yes, that he means that much to the playoff success. But I think people need to be reminded or kind of forced a little bit to understand how important he is to the success of this roster. It really is that important.
Yeah, and really, what I think the biggest thing about Miro Heiskanen is just his ability to shut down the other team's best player. That is truly his best quality. I mean, there's been games where we've played the Oilers, and you just watch Miro follow Connor McDavid the entire game. That's the only thing he does for the entire game. He shadows him, make sure he doesn't get to do anything. And that is just that there's not a lot of players in the league, especially defensemen, where you could just be like, okay, follow their best player the entire time. For one, it's hard to keep up with those players because typically they're extremely fast. And then it's hard to get the puck off of their sticks too, because really good stick handling. But that's what Miro is best at doing. He's best at using his stick, fouling up whatever they're trying to do, whatever cool thing they're trying to do, and just making their best player look invisible.
And there's a couple of great comments coming in already over here. Darren Smith, he doesn't mean that much, he means more. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. Maybe my whole 3-4 minute rant could have been summed up into that one statement by Darren there. Thank you, Darren. Ardell, I am curious to know your reasoning behind this and what you mean by this, because I don't think I quite understand. Ardell says in the chat, I also think you're dark clouding this thing, which is your prerogative. Explain a little bit more to me, because I'm not fully understanding.
What I think he's getting at is that Miro, the Stars can win without Miro, and they've definitely proved that in the last month.
Yes.
They definitely can go through even a pretty extended playoff run without Miro Heiskanen. They're definitely capable of that. But if you have Miro Heiskanen in there, it makes it look easy. Not that it will be easy, but it makes it look like a park, like a walk in the park, man. So he means that much to this team, but this team is good enough without him that they should be able to go pretty far.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I absolutely If that's what you're talking about, Ardell, then yes, that's what. Yes, they can win a round or two. I definitely agree. The thing I'm worried about though is when you get to the conference final and the Stanley Cup final, which is obviously the goal. I'm not trying to be that fan and look that far ahead, but that's the expectation of this team right now, is at the bare minimum Stanley Cup final. But I mean that has to be it, considering we've been in the playoffs for numerous years now. We went to the Stanley Cup final in 2020. Yes, special circumstances. The last 2 years we made it to the Western Conference final. It's just that the expectations are there with this team, and it is honestly a failure if they lose in the conference final again. That's my personal opinion. It might be unpopular, but I'm not quite cup or bust yet because of how many good young players the Stars still have, and they still have a lot of guys that are within the right age bracket. But I am very close to that. If they lose in the Western Conference Final, or if they lose in the Stanley Cup Final, absolutely next year is a cup or bust, hands down.
I mean, with the players they have right now, the team is cup or bust for the next like 3 or 4 years. So, whereas
that's just a good problem to have, by the way.
Yeah, which is a great problem to have. Whereas, like, the team is going to be good for quite a long time, really, with the personnel you have here, with Jamie Benn getting in his final years on this team. And I mean, Sagan's getting up there too, especially with injury probably accelerating some of that wear and tear on him. I mean, it's coming close for that set of people, for your older core who you really want them to lift that cup so badly. I mean, you could say that every Stars fan wants to see Jamie Benn holding the Stanley Cup, specifically him. I mean, over anyone else. That's the goal, and I'm not sure how much longer they're going to have the chance to do that. While Jamie is still a big part of the team, and he is a huge part of the team still right now.
He's going to be a big part of the team until he retires, James. Even if he's playing
it's not going to be the same level, though, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's not the same level now that it was 3 years ago, even. So,
I agree.
But anyway, here's a good. Ardell is making my brain scramble a little bit and make me think a little bit, which is good. And you know, Chris, to his credit, deserves a lot of praise on this too. What was the problem in the Edmonton series last year?
I ran out of scoring
and power play.
Yeah, scoring.
And then when I was talking about a defenseman, what did Jim Nill go and do? He pulled off the most ridiculous trade and got Mikko Rantanen, who has over 100 points in 80 playoff games, 80-ish playoff games, or something like that. He's got Stanley Cup experience. He's scored huge goals in the playoffs, and he knows what he's doing. And especially now that we're starting to see that chemistry between him and Robo and Rope really start to get going, the defense can probably hold. And Miro was playing great last year too. So, you know what? If Miro is in the lineup, this team is top notch, and there's a reason why they're being viewed by a lot of betting sites as the Stanley Cup favorites. So, okay, let's move on from that a little bit, because I think that was a good discussion there. But we got some other things we do need to discuss. Some of this stuff is mostly me just talking more than anything, because we do have about 4 players that the Dallas Stars have recently signed out of the NCAA, either as undrafted or if they were drafted previously by the Stars, right? And the 4 guys that have been kind of signed by the Stars in the last month or so, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk about them. But the first one, Angus McDonald, and then we had Ayrton Martino, that's the biggest out of the 4. Trey Taylor, and then Harrison Scott. And let me give you guys a little bit of background on each of these 4 guys. And I apologize if and James, jump in whenever you hear anything. McDonald, he's a 6th round pick in 2023, and he's quietly been kind of turning heads. He's 19 years old. He's a forward out of Toronto, and he's currently with the Steelheads in Brampton of the OOHL. And in 39 games, he's racked up 47 points. That's 24 goals and 23 assists. So, yes, he's what they call an overager, but that's still a very good record for very good points for a guy like that. He's not the biggest guy on the ice, but the Stars they've been known to take chances on some smaller guys. Obviously, Maverick Bourque he's not a small guy, but he's on the smaller side now. Obviously, Stankoven. So he's 5'10". So that's also interesting. And he's got energy, edge, and just enough skill to make you raise your eyebrows. That was one of the scouting reports that I read. what does it? What does that sound like to you, James? You got any thoughts on that?
Nope. I mean, really, the big thing with all these NCAA signings is like these are gonna be the signings that the Stars need. They need to pick up like those fourth, third liners is really what we're looking for, because you have the top two lines pretty much solidified. At very least, your top two centers solidified for 5 years. So you're looking for good players like your description just said, solid player, not someone who's going to like light up the league, which would be awesome if you get anyway. But like you, especially with trading as many draft picks out as we did for Rantanen, you're probably not going to pick those up so much. But I mean, you're looking for solid players like him, and going through the college hockey it's starting to become more common. And you're starting to see some really, really solid players out of the NCAA. And really, it feels like, from what I've seen, players coming out of that league tend to be a little more aggressive.
Well, it's mostly because they're not playing against teenagers, right? Like that's what the major junior leagues up in Canada do. They're playing against the best teenagers in the world. Well, maybe not the world, but for most of the part, best in the world, because there are guys from Russia and the U.S. that go up there or whatever. I mean, Jason Robertson did that. He went up to the OHL and did that. But they're more prepared for an NHL style game, if that makes any sense. In the major juniors up in Canada, the points are ridiculous, especially for the top players. I mean, like, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think Connor Bedard had like 160 something points in his last year in junior before he got drafted. It was something stupid, ridiculous that you don't really see very often. I'll save two of the guys for last, but I want to talk about Harrison Scott for a second. He's 24. So he's on definitely on the older side, but he just finished his senior year at the University of Maine, and he was an alternate captain for them. His points are not terrible. They're actually pretty good, especially for the NCAA. He got 18 goals, 17 assists in 38 games. So 35 points in 38 games at the NCAA level. That's very good. And he was actually a semifinalist for the Walter Brown Award, and that goes to the best American-born college hockey player in New England. So kind of specific, but still, that's good. Good things there. He's kind of like a late bloomer in a way, if that makes any sense. Obviously, he's 24. He's just now signing a entry level deal, but could see something good out of Harrison Scott. So,
and those are the ones that you're kind of looking at, like this dude's undrafted. You're trying to find someone who could work in a fourth line role. And honestly, sometimes you find people like Joel Kiviranta who comes into a playoff game and scores a hat trick. I mean, sometimes you get players like that are just really big at really big times, and just the more signings you get, the more darts you have that you get to throw at the board.
I still think it's crazy. Do you know how many goals he's got this season? I think you've been keeping track of it, haven't you?
Kiwi? He's got a decent amount, but it's got to be like still pretty low. It's like 15, I want to say, maybe more.
I say low. I think he's at 17 or 18 now. He could have a 20-goal season for the first time in his career. That's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
He's that was a diamond in the rough for sure.
And I think that he was one of those players that Jere Lehtinen kind of nudged Jim Nill a little bit about and said, "Hey, you need to take a crack at this guy and let this guy take a shot." And I mean, he's kind of done that with R2 Huru down in the AHL, and he's been lighting up the AHL as well. So, okay, so the last two guys are kind of two peas in a pod because of where they're coming from. They're both coming from Clarkson University. Obviously, Ayrton Martino, he is up for the Hobie Baker Award, which is the best player in college hockey in the NCAA. And then the other guy is Trey Taylor, and he actually wore the C for Clarkson University as team captain. And this is what you were talking about, James, before we jumped on air here. He's been the ECAC's best defensive defenseman 2 years in a row. Possible Esa Lindell?
Maybe not that high, but he should. What's that? That's telling you is that he should be very sound defensively, even if he doesn't score a lot of points. If he ends up on the third pair, he should be a really solid third pairing defenseman that doesn't really have to do that much.
And he's a big guy too, so he's on the bigger side. He's 6. Don't do this. Don't do that. He's 6'2". How tall are you?
That's not very big for the NHL, but it's big
for the NHL. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. So he apparently brings a calm and steady presence on the back end. That was one of the scouting.
That sounds like Miro.
Yeah, it sounds more. I guess he does sound like Miro a little bit.
But that description
is big.
Miro, but
he's not quite as big as Esa Lindell, but I don't know why he gives me Esa Lindell vibes. But anyways,
the defensive defenseman.
There you go. Maybe that's why. Okay. Let's talk about the big one. Obviously, is Ayrton Martino, and this guy is. I don't want to call him a late bloomer because he's not really like he wasn't drafted in the 6th or 7th round, but he was drafted in the 3rd round back in 2021, and he just finished up his senior year at Clarkson, like I said. And he had 51 points in 39 games this season, and he was named the ECAC Player of the Year. So he's not going to win the Hobey Baker, I don't believe, but he is in the top 10 finalists for the Hobey Baker. I think probably Ryan Leonard wins the Hobey Baker Award, but I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't been paying attention to college hockey as much, but. For those that don't know about this guy, he's an absolute playmaker. He just pure and simple. He's quick, he's crafty, and he's always a threat with the puck on his stick. And that kind of sounds like Rope hints to me a little bit. And again, he's not the biggest player on the ice, but he doesn't need to be. And a scouting report that I read said this: his vision and creativity do all the talking. So that's good things to hear. From Ayrton Martino. I've gotten to watch him a couple of times, not very much, but from what I've seen from him, he has definitely stood out among the players in the NCAA.
Yeah, this is he's from the same draft that we picked up Wyatt Johnson, Logan Stankoven. So that
can you imagine
that makes
hitting
it
all 3?
Well, it makes it exciting because there was that year was the COVID year where a lot of players didn't play that much, so you couldn't really see how great of a player they were because like Wyatt Johnson played 8 games in his draft year. So
nuts.
It's an exciting prospect to see. It's nice to see that they signed him to a deal, and now we get to see what he's going to do in the AHL next year, hopefully.
I believe some of them actually signed their entry-level deals for next year.
Yeah,
and some of them are on ATOs for the rest of this regular season. I believe so. I don't remember off the top of my head. I probably should have looked at it up before.
All of them did that because I'm looking at Puckpedia, and all 4 of them say that they do not have contracts for this year.
So
but that they do for next year.
Are all of them on ATOs though?
I don't know how to see that.
Okay, all right. I know one of them for sure is on an ATO. I just don't remember who. Chat, help me out. Okay. Last thing for today, and then we'll get into who cares, James. And this one might be a little longer than we want it to be, but there's a lot of different angles to go on this, and that's just about the standings in general. The playoff teams in the West seem to be solidified. They are not solidified mathematically, but here are basically the 8 teams that are going to be in the playoffs for the Western Conference. Obviously, it's Winnipeg, Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, and St. Louis. So 5 teams from the Central are going to make the playoffs. And then it's Vegas, LA, and Edmonton in the Pacific. Now, What's very interesting is a lot of people right now are sleeping on the Vegas Golden Knights. I can't believe I'm saying that, but they're not being talked about very much. LA, they are also doing very well right now at 7-3, and they've won their last two. And it looks like right now that they're going to outpace the Edmonton Oilers and get home ice advantage for the first time in the first round against these guys. I think they've played the last it's at least the last 2 years in the first round against the Oilers, and the Oilers always seem to have the upper hand. But this might be the first time where the LA Kings kind of have the upper hand on the Edmonton Oilers. As far as the Central Division, I don't think any of the stuff are solidified in terms of where they're going to end. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the fact that the Stars could, overtake first place in the Central, and they had a chance to do so by having a game directly against Winnipeg in Winnipeg, and then they crapped the bed. That was probably one of the worst games we've seen from them in the regular season in recent memory. And then I don't think Colorado is going to catch either Dallas or Winnipeg, because right now they're 8 points behind the Stars in that third spot. And, at the same time, Minnesota and St. Louis both are within striking distance of Colorado. It's very unlikely because they are 5 points behind the Avalanche, but there's lots of different things that you could look at this Western Conference playoff picture and kind of find some storylines there. So looking at the standings here, James, what intrigues you the most? Obviously the Stars, the Stars part obviously does, but what else kind of intrigues you?
Well, first of all, the Avalanche are going to be third in the Central. There's only 6, 7, maybe 8 games left, and they're 5-point gap. So that is a massive gap for so few games left. They'd have to lose half of them, and then the Wild or Blues would have to win all the rest. So that's unlikely. But really, what I think is the most intriguing is the fight between Minnesota and the Blues for the first or second wild card spot, whatever it ends up being. Because first of all, does it really matter that much? Because you're going to get Vegas or Winnipeg, maybe possibly the Stars in there, the little asterisk, but no matter what, whoever you're playing is terrible, terrible first round opponent to go up against. But it's just so close, and the Blues have come from out of nowhere. We were expecting once they started playing good, you're like, okay, maybe they got the second wild card spot, right? And now they're truly fighting. They're tied with Minnesota for the second one. Dead tied. The only thing that the Wild have over them is they have 3 more regulation wins. So the Blues do have to get more points than the Wild. They cannot tie them. But really, that could, if the Stars can pretty much play lights out like they have been into the end of the season, and the Jets lose 1, maybe 2 more games, it's truly what you need. Then you could see the Stars go up against the Wild or the Blues, which is astronomically easier than going up against the Avalanche right now.
I don't know if you want to go against the Blues right now. And, this is also something that we should make a good point about. And someone called me out for it. I don't know who it was exactly. I forget who it was. But someone mentioned to me that we've got to stop talking about, we really don't want to face this team in the playoffs. We really don't want to face this team in the playoffs. The fact is you're going to play a good team in the playoffs, period. That's not what I got called out for. But what I got called out for was, why aren't we talking about the Stars like other teams don't want to play the Stars?
Because I'm sure they don't.
But see, the reason why I was like this is because I'm so blinded to the Stars, I'm in my own lane, and I was like, well, I really don't want to play this. Well, I really don't want to play them. Well, I don't want to play them either. It really doesn't matter. In the West, it is nuts, absolutely nuts how well all the top 8 playoff teams are doing right now. So just to give you give you clarity. There's only one team that I could say in their last 10 games are not doing well. Okay. Stars 7-1-2. They've won 6 in a row. Winnipeg 7-3. Colorado 6-2-2. Vegas 7-2-1. LA 7-3. Edmonton 6-3-1, and they've been kind of lately too. And they look like they might be in trouble, but they've won their last 2 games. And then the Minnesota Wild are 4-4-2. That's the only one I would consider a little bit, cringeworthy a little bit. And then obviously you've got the St. Louis Blues, who are just on an absolute tear right now. They're 10-0 in their last 10 games, and it doesn't look like they're going to slow down. So, and the other thing that I noticed, getting ready for this episode, James, was the stark contrast between the top 8 teams in the West and the top 8 teams in the East. And I don't want to get to the East yet, but I just want to say their last 10 records to just show you the difference. Toronto 7-2-1, Tampa Bay 7-2-1, Carolina 8-2. So that's 3 teams. Those are the only 3 teams I would say are doing pretty well right now. The rest of the top teams in the East are mediocre right now. Listen to this. Florida 4-5-1 in their last 10. Washington, the favorites to win the President's Trophy this year, 5-4-1. The Devils 5-4-1. Ottawa 5-4-1. And then Montreal, which is barely in the playoff picture, 4-3-3. Like it is a strike contrast between how well the teams in the West are doing right now compared to the teams in the East. And for the longest time, we've always talked about, the West is trash and blah, 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 blah. It takes 89 points to be in the playoff picture in the West right now. It takes 79 to be in the playoff picture in the East. Ottawa, who has the first wild card spot in the East, would not be in the playoffs if they were in the Western Conference right now.
New Jersey, who is 3rd in the Metropolitan, would not be in the playoffs.
There, and that shows you right there. Like, and it's just not fair. It's just the way that it is. The West side of the playoffs this year are going to be absolutely freaking nuts. It's going to be so much harder to get through the first 3 rounds on the West side compared to the East. Because, like, when you look at it, let's just say the Stars win the President's Trophy. They get first in the Central Division, and the Blues stay on that second wild card, right? Okay, you have to play against a team who went on an absolute tear to finish the regular season to get into the playoffs. If you defeat them, then you have to play the winner of Winnipeg or Colorado. So either you have to choose between the guy who's probably going to win the Hart Trophy or the guy who's probably going to win, who also might be up for the Hart Trophy, right?
And is going to win the Vezina.
And is going to win the Vezina. And then and let's say you win that series, then you have to go against, more than likely, in my opinion, Vegas or Edmonton. And Vegas, you've got a team who has been absolutely ridiculous right now. And a lot of people are not talking about Jack Eichel enough. They're not. And then if it's not Vegas, then you have to play Edmonton, who we lost to in the conference final last year and who have the 2 best players in the world. It's it's just ridiculous what the Stars are looking at and how daunting it's going to be. So I don't know why I'm going through all of this in my head, but what it's kind of telling me is that we're looking at a really exciting playoff for the Dallas Stars, and it's going to be monumental if they can get all the way through it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a gauntlet no matter who you get. It's tough luck no matter who you get. You gotta beat them.
I mean, that you just have to do it. And maybe if the Stars get to the Stanley Cup final, it'll be their easiest series of the entire playoffs.
It won't be, but yeah.
I highly doubt that, but it might be. Okay. Looking at the East real quick. Toronto first and let's just talk about all these teams. Toronto with 96 points, Tampa with 93, Florida with 92. That's the top 3 in the Atlantic. Top 3 in the Metro, Washington, Carolina, and the New Jersey Devils, who would not be in the playoff picture. Again, I'll say it again, would not be in the playoff picture if they were in the West. And then the 2 wild cards, Ottawa, who has 84 points, and Montreal, who has 79.
Just
And
by
here's
the
the thing.
way, Montreal is 19th in the league, and they're in a playoff spot.
That's nuts. But I mean, like if you look at the West, you could have Calgary, Vancouver, or Utah in the playoffs in the East. One of those three teams. All three of those teams have more points than the Montreal Canadiens currently. And then here's the other thing I wanted to point out, James, is the race to the final wild card spot is not even a race. It's like a
It's a tumble.
It's not even a
falling
tumble.
down a hill.
A tumble would still be fast. Like
it's fast, just in the wrong direction.
It's just a complete turtle race to the end. I mean, when you look at the teams that are going for the spot, listen to this real quick. And I know you can see it, but this is for everybody else listening. Okay, Montreal currently has the final wild card spot, and they're 4-3-3 in their last 10. All right. Here's the other teams beneath them. The Rangers, 5-4-1, not really scaring anybody there. Columbus, 3-6-1, who, if I'm being, a closet fan of any team, it's Columbus right now. I so badly want them to make the playoffs because of what they've gone through. And they actually have a chance to win the playoffs because we were all talking about them being the bottom feeders of the East, and that has not happened. That it would be a fantastic story. Detroit, 4-5-1 in their last 10. And the Islanders, 3-4-3 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. And you know what's crazy is those are the only teams within striking distance. The next team is Pittsburgh. They have 71 points, so 8 points behind Montreal. And they have the best record of all of those teams that I just mentioned in the last 10 with 6-3-1. That's just nuts to me. Like the crazy difference, again, between the East and the West. So my question to you, James, is first off, it's a 2-part. Who do you want to get the final wild card spot? And who do you think actually gets the final wild card spot?
I think everyone wants Columbus to get that final spot. And I said this months ago. Who do I think's going to get it? I think the Rangers are going to end up with it because you still have Shesterkin there. He could pull off a couple wins by himself to drag him into the playoffs. But I mean, goaltending on bad teams tends to kind of trump a lot of their problems. And both the Senators and the Rangers have outstanding goaltending. So I really think the Rangers are going to find a way to grab a hold of that spot.
Now, I'm right with you in wanting Columbus to. I already said that, but I'll say it again. Really want Columbus to get that final wildcard spot. That would be fantastic. I would love to see that. Who do I think is actually going to get it? I don't know, man.
The Red Wings, right?
No. It's between the Rangers or Montreal. You know what? No, Columbus has 2 games in hand on the Rangers and a game in hand on
Columbus
Montreal.
is in control of their own destiny. If they win their games in hand, they will be in that spot. But they have to win their games in hand.
Well, that's the thing is they're 3-6-1 in their last 10, and I don't think they're on and they just recently won 1. So you know what? I'm gonna say Columbus just because I think they're gonna get it. They just got Monahan back. They're gonna push for that final wild card spot, and they're gonna have to face against a really nasty Washington Capitals team with Mr. Grade 8 over there, which we haven't even got a chance to talk about, by the way. That's the playoff picture right now, guys. It's looking insane. It's coming down to the wire, especially in the East. And for the West, it's who's going to be where.
Yeah.
It's just seeding at this point for the West. And yeah, it's not as fun just to look at the standings in the West and stuff like that. But it is still going to be interesting to see if the Stars can catch the Winnipeg Jets. They've got another game against them. So that could be a 4-point swing that direction if they can get that. So we'll have to wait and see how the stars do there. Anything else, James? Anything else?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I will let you have it and
All
have you
right.
do the Who Cares segment for the evening. So what
All
you
right.
got for us today?
So today's wonderful Who Cares segment comes from our wonderful Discord from a wonderful person named Martin C. We're going to do our top 3 favorite smells. Your top 3 favorite smells, Ryan.
That is very interesting. I have
third.
three. I have 3 smells, but I don't know what would go 3, 2, 1. You know what? Okay, mine's kind of basic for number 3, and it's kind of lame, but it's true. My number 3 is after it rains, and it actually smells good after it rains. Okay, yeah, and everyone knows the difference, right? There is the turd rain that makes it smell terrible after it rains, and then there is like the spring fresh flower kind of rain. I mean, you understand what I'm talking about, James, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's the kind of smell that I like, that I enjoy, and especially early in the morning, like right before the sun comes up. So it's like, 7 o'clock in the spring, or like, 7:05, something like that. And the sun's just barely peeking up, or it's not quite there yet. And you can kind of still see everything, and there's dew on the ground, and it smells amazing. That's my number 3.
My number 3 is also going to be the smell of rain, but I don't care what kind of rain it is. I love the smell of rain. I don't know what it is about
There's turd
water
rain.
molecules in the air that I can, if the more humid it is, the better it is too. If I'm inhaling water, that is like
gosh, no.
perfect. That is perfect. I mean, that's what it was for me after church tonight. I walked out, inhaled, and I just, I probably had more water than I drank in all day. So, number 3 is definitely the smell of rain.
No, okay. So I was with you until you said humidity, dude.
Nope,
I can't.
humidity
No,
is my friend.
I
love
humidity.
it.
Okay. So, well, the reason why I'm especially on it right now is because of what happened today. The AC in the band hall went out today, and it was just terrible, because when the band periods are for the junior high is at basically from 10 o'clock to noon, right? And there's 2 different groups. Basically, one goes from 10 to 11, and then the other goes from 11 to 12. It's weird times, but that's basically it. And the weird thing about it is with the AC out, normally what I do is I just open the doors to the band hall on either side, and it's fine. And you can get through a class period like that. But because of the fact that it was fixing to rain and it was nasty outside as well, it was just as humid outside as it was inside the band hall. So I tried to leave the door open, and it just was completely miserable for about 2 hours. And I'm sitting there up at the front teaching. Oh, I hated it. And there was like 60 kids in the first period, and then there's 80 in the second period. So all the warm bodies in this small room, it was not fun. So humidity, no go, no like humidity. Anyways,
you're number 3rd, Ron, or you're number 2nd. My bad.
my number
You're
3rd.
number 2nd. I don't normally run this segment. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I know. You have to count backwards, James. That's how it works. 3, 2,
4?
1. No.
You're number 4th.
No, other way.
Go ahead.
Other way.
Go ahead, Ryan.
And this is a very specific one, and it has to be from Bath and Body Works. Okay. And I know some people are like, they love Bath and Body Works scents, and others absolutely hate it. The Japanese cherry blossom scent from Bath and Body Works is absolutely incredible. I love the smell, whether it's like the soaps that they have, the hand soaps, anything Japanese cherry blossom. I absolutely love it from that company. I don't know what's in it. I have no idea. Don't care. It smells amazing. That's my number 2.
It smells pretty good. My wife loves going there, so I know that smell all too well.
What do you know her favorite one?
I don't remember the name of it. She likes different ones. She gets different ones when she's there. That's the whole fun of Bath and Body Works. You keep changing the scents.
Tis true. Okay.
Anyway,
Your number
my
two.
number 4th is gonna
Oh my
be
gosh, gonna keep doing
it's
this.
gonna be honeysuckle. I love
Oh,
the
that's a good
smell
one.
of honeysuckle.
That's a
It
good
is
one.
so good, and there's a very specific reason why I think I like this smell. At our church building, when I was younger, we would play around behind the church building, and on the back fence line was a ton of honeysuckle that would bloom in the spring. And I always remember going back there and just smelling that, and that's just beautiful and nostalgic memory for me. So my number 4th, definitely honeysuckle. All right, Ryan, your number 5th.
Dang it! I was hoping you would actually say it right. Okay.
All right, fine. Your number 1st.
Thank you. Okay, because this deserves number 1, not number 5th. Okay, and this is the true number 1. Okay. Imagine you're waking up after a really good long rest, right? And what's awesome about it is that you're either in the middle of summer or you're in the weekend when you don't have to go to work, when you don't have to go to school, when you can hang out and do what you would like. And as soon as you wake up, the greatest smell that you smell is bacon on the pan. That is the greatest way in the world to wake up, is to not just hearing bacon, but being able to smell it throughout the house. I mean, there's nothing like it. And again, this is a little bit nostalgic for me too, in the fact that when I was little, when Mimi and Pop, who are our grandfather and grandma, that's what we call them, when they used to live in Corpus Christi, Mimi is a fantastic cook. I mean, just anything and everything she makes is really, really good. Whether it's her peanut butter candy, her angel biscuits are to die for. They're ridiculous. But she always, when we came into town, we would always be coming in late because we would drive from Dallas all the way to Corpus. It's like an 8-hour drive. I remember being really little and making that drive. And then, mom or dad carrying me in. And then the morning I would wake up, Mimi's cooking bacon in the kitchen. And oh my goodness, I absolutely loved those times. That is the best smell. It's not even close to my number 2 and number 3. Number 3 is here. Number 2 is here. Number 1's not even on the screen. It's like way above. So that's my number 1, and that's the true number 1.
You know what? I'm disappointed in myself because I didn't think about bacon when I was on this list. It probably would have been my number 3rd if I had thought about it, but I didn't. My number 1st, or number 5th, if you will, is the smell of the movie theaters. I absolutely love the smell of the movie theaters. I know that the popcorn doesn't really smell like that. I know that they've made up this smell, but every time I walk in there, it's just I don't know how to explain it. My mind goes numb. It's perfect. It's the main reason why I still go to movie theaters now, because quite frankly, I don't like talking to people, and I'd rather watch a movie at home in the comfort of my own sofa. But there's just something about going there, getting the smell. You have to get the popcorn once you've smelled it. I mean, you have to get popcorn now. It's just it's so good. So my number 1st smell is the smell of the movie theaters.
I am also disappointed in myself that I didn't think about the movie theater.
We both messed up terribly.
Yeah, now it still would not have been my number 1, but that definitely probably could have been my number 2. That was a very good number 1. I like that. I thought I had it in the bag with the bacon. I still think I win personally.
My overall list is still better.
Nah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's let everybody else decide who's listening.
Well, they can decide in the comments and on Discord if they want to. I definitely
let us. Yeah,
Ryan
let
doesn't
us
win.
I never deserve to win. You know what, Chris? If you're listening, go ahead and text us right now and let us know who's actually the winner. And I don't think he's listening live, but yeah, I'm sure he'll listen afterwards.
I think Bacon might win him over, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Bacon has to win. Bacon has to win. It's the greatest food ever. Anyways, guys, we got way over, but that is perfectly okay. Great segment idea. Thank you, Martin C. Which, by the way, who cares, member? So thank you, Martin, for the suggestion. And we have another interesting one for next week. We don't normally have one planned ahead of time, but
We don't
James is
have
already-
one planned, okay? We don't.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But what we do, if y'all have any suggestions that y'all want us to pick through, if it's great, if it's good enough, for our liking, and it breaks through the rest of our other lists that we have, you can go and comment it on Discord. There's Who Cares suggestion area. If you have any suggestions, go write them down there. And also, there's a ton of other cool things in the Discord.
James, Brooke's gonna call you out for a split second, okay? Doesn't like talking to people, but has a podcast.
I don't talk to y'all people. Y'all just listen to me.
but technically, you're listening to them with the chat, right?
Not voices. Not quite the
Not
same.
voices, but in a way, you're still talking to them, right? Yeah.
Not really.
Whatever.
It's a lot less stressful. I'm sitting in my home in front of my computer, which is not quite the same as going out and socializing.
That is absolutely true as well. I think that's why the three of us work so well together, because Chris is obviously the super extroverted one. You're the introverted one. I started as an introverted person, and then just because of my job, because I have to act crazy and silly, I've kind of become an extroverted person. But I think that's why we work so well together, on top of being brothers. But anyways, let's wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for following along with us live. There's even more that are listening afterwards. If you liked this episode, please consider clicking like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and hit that notification bell. If you're listening on the audio side, please consider leaving a 5-star review wherever that may be. If you like to support us in what we do, there's 2 ways to do that. Sarcastic Remarks shop.com is our merch store. And if you'd like to become a Who Cares Club member for $5 a month, that's the easiest way to support us and what we do. And as always, thank you to DraftKings Sportsbook for being our sponsor. The Pick 6 option is there. Promo code there is THPN. Alongside a hiding James, my name is Ryan. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Hope you guys have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening. Whenever you guys are listening, we'll be back with you guys again tomorrow night. The Stars take on the Nashville Predators. Thank you guys. Appreciate all the support. Love all around.